Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Adventures of a Real Estate Investor. I'm Susie.
And I'm Michael. We're excited you joined us for this adventure.
So today we're really excited because we learned so much about asset management because of this individual. He didn't know back then, but just made a really huge impact on us. So it's super cool for it to all come full circle and to have Gary Lipsky on the podcast with us today. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And like Susie said, love the content you've put out, learned a lot from it, especially your book, Best in Class. We'll talk about that later, of course. But before we get started, obviously, we know Susie and I learned a lot about you, Gary, but our Adventures family may not. And so would you mind sharing with our audience a little bit more about your background and how you got started in real estate investing?
Yeah, absolutely. So been an entrepreneur my whole life. I mean, even like high school, I was shoveling driveways and doing auto detailing during the summer. I started a restaurant delivery service in college, and I was just with my buddy last week who I started with, and he's like, "We could have been like billionaires." And I'm like, "Cool your heels," we obviously had a very small business, but it was. I wish we had the vision then. But then I was doing I co-produced 3 low budget independent films in my 20s. I owned an after-school outdoor ed and leadership development company for a while in Los Angeles. And when I sold it, we were working with 9,000 at-risk youth on a daily basis. Oh. And I had been investing in real estate before that and wanted to get into it full time. And so once I sold it, I had some time and a little bit of money to kind of invest in other people's deals, and then started doing my own deals and really hunkered down on that asset management piece, like you said, to really rocket fuel my business and to, because I was in it for the long haul and wanted to make sure that I'm protecting investors' money. And I really wasn't seeing a lot of people talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to get into details about asset management for sure. But I mean, it's so important because that is where the money is made, right? First, buy it right, they say. And then but all the money is made, from year 0 until whenever you finish executing business plan and then through disposition. And that whole period in there, which is the longest period of the whole cycle, is the most important period, in my opinion. So, yeah.
Out of everything though, right? Because people talk about, capital raising or just acquisitions, or I don't even know what else there is at the moment. Besides making sure that your investors were taken care of, how are you okay, now, we need to talk more about asset management?
Well, I guess it starts really, because I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, it starts with coming up with a business plan and then executing on that business plan. And that's what asset management is. We hire a third-party property management company. We got to make sure we're on the same page. Are they seeing the same things I am? Would they underwrite it the same? And if not, tell me where I'm wrong and tell me where I'm right. Let's come on to be on the same page and commit to that as a blueprint, because we're going to pivot. Nothing goes as planned, but at least we're working towards the same goal. So it's really it's applying those business skills that I developed over time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to kind of highlight something that you mentioned there that a lot of people don't also talk about. And that is involving your property management company from the very beginning, right? For us, we have one property management company that we deal with who manages all of our properties, and they're amazing. We love them. And before we even look at a property to underwrite it, we just send it, hey, we'll take a look at it, say, will we be interested in this? Yes. Hey, before I actually do the full-blown underwriting, I send it over to our property manager. Hey, are you interested in managing this property? And she says yes, or she says no, then we make our decisions from there. And so it's very, very important. I feel like a lot of people, sometimes they'll get a property under contract and then they're scrambling at the last minute to find a property management company. I'm like, what? It just doesn't make sense to me. So I love how you said involving your property manager from the very beginning, making sure, hey, does this business plan actually make sense? Where am I off? What can we do to tweak it and things like that? How did you learn this whole asset management thing? And how did you decide that was the important piece? I mean, you mentioned business and running businesses and stuff like that in the past, but shed some light on that, please.
Yeah. So, I mean, I had a baseline from my other businesses. And then when we bought our first place, we were, developing some skills and figuring out and building systems. And I mean, quite honestly, we're still, building systems and improving stuff as we go along. Nothing's ever perfect and static. You want to constantly improve. But after we did 2 deals, we decided to have a podcast called the Real Estate Asset Management Podcast. and bring on experts that we can learn from and really hyper, fuel our learning curve, and ask the questions that we wanted to know. So I've interviewed probably over 150 people over time. We had a real estate asset management summit as well, and brought in other experts as too for that, and had them speak on it. So the learning never stops. There's always room for improvement, but that really helped boost our baseline really fast.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like that. And that's the great thing about having a podcast, right? Because you can talk to people, experts like yourself, Gary, and then ask them the questions that you want to ask, or, things like that, which is really cool. I really enjoy that podcast.
Anybody aspiring to be an asset manager or wanting to learn more about asset management, like give that. That's one you need to download ASAP. And the episodes are bite sized. So like you can get through quite a few in a day. Or like if you just want to do one a day, it's not like, oh my gosh, 2 hours later, I forgot what the topic was about. So that's what I love about that too.
And then your asset management summit, like what kind of things were you trying to focus and bring about in those asset management summits?
So the most important thing was quality. We didn't want people selling stuff and just kind of providing fluff. We really wanted to make sure that there was high quality content. And so the first time, I think we had like 1,800 people sign up for it, and just real high quality speakers. And we selected them just like my podcast. We just hand selected people to be on it versus having, saying, hey, anyone that wants to be on. That wasn't our thing. We wanted to make sure someone had like a quality story, and someone didn't have to be, have done 20 deals. Someone that's done 1 or 2 or 3 deals could provide some really good stories for people just starting out, or they had a unique circumstance. And I thought that was just very valuable. And we just always wanted to provide quality, valuable content for our listeners.
So out of like the 150-ish people you've had on your podcast, and then with the summit, what is the takeaway that you were like, wow, everyone needs to know that? And then second part of that is like, what is a reoccurring, and I don't know if you talk about this a lot, but like mistake newer asset managers making, and you're like, if only you knew this, it'd help.
So I'll start with Neil Bawa is great because he breaks everything down and measures everything. What gets measured gets managed. And so you could see the bottlenecks. He talks about LASL, which is the whole leasing process, the application to someone making an appointment to actually signing a lease. And so you break down each section of that to see where the bottleneck is. Because if you're just saying leasing and we're 95% occupied, that doesn't break everything down. And you want to see where the people that you're converting are coming from. Because I could spend $0 to $25 on Craigslist and have a ton of conversion, or pay for apartments.com and pay $1,000 and get no conversion every month. So it's just breaking all those pieces down, and you can apply that to every part of asset management. Your unit renovations, where between the time that you're notified that they're moving out to when your crew starts working on it, to when it's completed, to when it's leased up, and just breaking down every single piece. Just slight improvements can drastically improve your NOI. So I think that's the most important piece. And as far as the thing that beginners make a mistake, I guess asset management doesn't have to be hard. Like anyone can do it, but it's having that consistency, doing it every single week. You could say, oh, my property is doing fine. I'm hitting my numbers. I don't have to have a call. Man, your property goes backwards really, really fast if you're not having those consistent calls, if you're not dropping in on your property unannounced, because it's just human nature. People get content. And if you're not getting pushed hard from the asset manager, they're going to be chill. But if you really set a very high expectation and have ownership thinking for your team, they're going to go that extra mile. You're talking about a huge difference. It's just pure profit because your expenses are going to be baseline. If you're getting a few extra leases every month, or they're making the place clean and doing faster turns, or all these little things that add up, it could be millions of dollars to your bottom line at the end of the day when you sell.
I love that. And yeah, just to kind of highlight some things that you kind of mentioned here. So the LASL process, so like I think it's like leads, applications, showings, and then leases or something like that. Yeah, we do something very
appointments, and then leads. Yeah, exactly. Thanks.
Yeah, we got it.
Yeah. But yeah, we track that on KPIs. And so, we have the leads that come in, how many of those turn into show appointments or whatever, and then showing or appointments and then applications and whatever. So like you could then, like you're saying, tracking the bottlenecks, right? So like, how you had 100 leads, but only 20 of those turned into showings, right? And then like from that, only 5 of those turned into applications. Why? Okay, maybe we're not getting qualified leads. Okay, why are we not getting qualified leads? Right? Maybe we're advertising to the wrong area, right? So it's like you can look at these different little things. It's just really cool, just tracking a KPI. And one thing I actually learned from your book was the loss of lease tracking.
That's what I was just going to talk about.
One thing we added to our KPI spreadsheet after we read your book, and I was like, oh yeah, we should be tracking that. Yeah, I didn't think come across. Like, yeah, we know we've taken all of the rents to market, but now we're going to start tracking, monthly, what that delta is between our market and our average rent, right? To see how close, if we're burning off that loss of lease over time, which was really cool. So I think that was the biggest takeaway from your book, which was really cool, and we implemented it immediately. So yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, it's really cool to see, because you're getting, when you're turning units and whatnot. So now you're getting $300 rent bumps or whatever it is, but watching that gain in NOI over time and seeing them, all the way come up to market, which is great. And it's kind of like a moving target too, because your market rents hopefully are consistently increasing over time, whether it's 3% rent growth, 5% rent growth, whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. I think, a lot of people, asset management is not sexy, right? And a lot of people are like, oh, whatever, getting the deal, chasing the deal, closing on a multi-million-dollar, tens of millions of dollars of property, bringing all these pieces together to close on the property. That's what's sexy, right? And then managing it after that is not really sexy. Why do you think that is, Gary? Why are these people not really focused on asset management?
Because it doesn't play well on Facebook. They want that acquisition fee. So that's doing a deal. And they want, like post, hey, I got another deal. I've got 1 billion assets under management, and I really only have like 0.1% of ownership and all of that. So, this is a show me society now. And really, if you're in this for the long haul and you want to protect your investors, you have to understand asset management. You don't necessarily need to be the asset manager on the property, but you have to be able to work with that person and know what's going on, because you're always facing obstacles, and a really good asset manager could take a bad property and make it good, and make a good property great. And so you're just really protecting your investors. And at the end of the day, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think, and we were talking offline before this as well, like flood of people interested in multifamily in 2020. And a lot of people got a lot of purchased a lot of properties and things like that. And it was great because 2020 and 2021, people were holding assets for 12 to 18 months. And because appreciation was just going crazy in certain markets, like they were buying it, holding it, not doing anything, and then selling it, 12, 18 months down the road, and for a significant, 30% IRR, right? So it's like, and they didn't have to do any asset management. And so they look like a god because they're like, oh, look, I was able to make this 30% IRR. But now that everything's changing, the tides are turning, things are getting tougher, people aren't banking on appreciation too much anymore. And it's really, the value add strategy. I think these people, I'm gonna say these people, like people who don't really understand asset management kind of get pushed out of the market, right? And the people who really understand asset management and have been able to fully asset manage and through 2020, 2021, and now are really going to be, I guess, in a better position now than people who potentially weren't, put to the fire, right, in 2020, 2021. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Do you have the same feelings, same thoughts?
Totally agree. And sometimes a little shakeout is good because, like you said, there were so many people that came into the industry after all these years, and certainly the run up made me look really smart too. But if you can buy right and buy in the right location, underwrite it correctly, conservatively. Now, I know everyone says they underwrite it conservatively, but really, truly do, because I like to see other people's deals, and then I see reversion caps like way too low, not enough cash reserves, being way too aggressive at rent. So I know people say that, but there's a lot of people that don't underwrite conservatively. And a little shakeout is good to see. Take out some of the operators that haven't performed well. And I know of operators that that haven't been doing well, and they just keep chasing deals and keep chasing deals, and they don't have an asset manager on the team. And I feel sorry for their investors, because you've got to provide resources and money and time to protect your properties and get the best out of them.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. It's like there's a lot that occurs during the week to make sure that they are successful. And especially with your property manager, right? Like, as you said at the beginning, like having those weekly, bi-weekly, however many times you want to have the call, but like you're really talking to them sometimes more than that, like depending on where you are in your business plan, depending what's happening with the property, or just even with the market, right? Everything could just change. The weather actually makes conversations occur more often too. It's like, I don't know how I want to word this, but like having a really good relationship with your property manager also goes a long way, because then they feel like they can be honest with you with what's working and what's not. Mm-hmm. And like when you have somebody on your team who is willing to do that with you, it's huge, right? So I know I'm kind of backtracking a little, but I do think it's super important to make sure that one, your property manager is involved the whole time, so that throughout this whole entire process, right, appreciation or not, with your value add strategy, like that, it is achievable.
Yeah, you want that insight. They're there every single day talking to all the residents. They have more insight than the regional manager, so really important to make them feel that their input matters and makes a difference and part of the team, versus just, like a quiet person in the room that's the regional manager do all the talking. We want the property manager to be included, and we'll purposely try to spend some time with them without the regional, just to get their insight. And, we want to know what's not working, because we understand that not everything works perfectly. That's business, so tell us what's not working so we can fix it or provide the resources that they need.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I can agree more. It's just, I love this conversation because I don't get to talk about asset management a lot. And like, I do want to kind of, so the one thing that I've been trying to actually implement, and this is kind of off the wall, Gary, and I'm sorry if I'm hitting you with this, but like AI, right? AI is really big right now, and like Chat GPT and the power that it has, right? So like I've actually been playing with it to run some analysis and stuff like that on some financials, like I've been, you can like give it links and stuff like that and like take a look and provide information. It's like what I would like to do, is get more AI involved in asset management processes. Have you thought about this at all? Have you been integrating any kind of AI tools or techniques?
Or I guess heard of others doing it too.
Or heard of anybody else. Yeah.
We haven't implemented anything, but I asked the team to, like, for each person to kind of look at each month to try to create a new tool or resource using AI. I will be at a mastermind for multifamily in a couple of weeks, so I'm curious what the group has, and being a part of a group. Well, it's always a great idea to share ideas and get. I always walk away with probably 10 ideas, so maybe someone else is doing it, and I can learn and implement it myself. But we haven't yet. I think property management companies in general are very, very archaic. And every time we provide something, they're like, "Oh, wait, we never thought of that." And I was like, they've been doing the same thing for like 20 years, So we have to carefully bring them along on things and update what they're doing, because they're just not, it's a low margin, thankless job, and so they're not rarely pushing the new technology.
Yeah. Yeah, for example, for that, like we were using Asana on our properties.
Like we made our
own Asana for us, or the partner, like for us, for Susie and I, to kind of track what's going on. And then we started bringing on the property manager, and the CEO of the management company was like, "Wait, this is awesome!" Like, and she ended up implementing it across so every single property now has its own Asana,
which is cool.
There's a project tab and stuff like that, which is really cool. So I'm glad we were able to bring that.
It goes along with what you're saying, right? Because it's like, or they just don't think about it or have the time, because that's true too. Like there's just so much going on that it's like, trying something new and having it not work is like kind of a big deal. So I feel like it was like a little bit of a proof of concept, being like, "Oh, wow, okay, we know it works. It won't be that hard."
Our weekly report from our property management was like 20 pages of a PDF. And we're like, here's a Google sheet. It's one page, and you create a tab each week so we can track. We can go back at any point and be like, okay, on this point in April, 1 year ago, where was our occupancy? Where was our delinquency? And so we have all of that. It's very easy to see now, instead of like going back, trying to pull the PDF and what page was this and that. And it's just no. So, I mean, it took them a while to get used to it, but so much better when they embrace it,
Totally.
Yeah, 100%.
I love it.
I got a question, Gary. What piece of advice do you have for somebody who wants to invest passively, doesn't really know the operator that well? Like, we know asset management is the key to successful syndication or through a successful business plan, things like that. Like, what piece of advice do you have for that person? How do they do their due diligence on this individual on the asset management side of things?
Yeah, get to know the sponsor, ask, for investors that have worked with them. And then sometimes you ask that investor, hey, do you know anyone else that invested with them? Because they might give you their best friend or whatnot, but you want to dig a little deeper, find out what their, communication style is. Are they communicating once a month, every single month? If there's an issue like when COVID popped up or Texas freeze, are they communicating maybe twice a month? For the short time, just to, let investors know what's going on. Do they have financial backing? If this is their last penny, and they need those fees, maybe that's not the best person to invest with, because they're going to make decisions that puts food on their table, not on the investor table, so you got to dig a little bit deeper, talk, ask other people what their experiences are, and that'll help. Because I know myself, when I invested with someone else the first time, I just didn't do enough research, and luckily I came out okay. It wasn't looking good for a while, but I know a lot of people that have been burned because, this person has a meetup, so they must be good, or they've been on Facebook and have 200 posts, they must be good. But do your research. I'm guilty of that, but it's not foolproof, but definitely that'll help minimize investing with someone that probably isn't the right person to invest with.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Now I want to kind of we're moving towards the end of the show. I want to transition to your book, right? Like, so obviously you had this podcast, you recorded or had interviews and recorded a bunch of people about asset management. And you're probably like, why is this not, you had it all located in like your podcast and all the episodes. Like, there's no books on asset management. And I'm assuming yours, like, I got to write a book. How did it
So actually, when it was probably when we launched the podcast, we were thinking about the book too at the same time.
Oh, cool.
And so we were interviewing people to help. Like, if we didn't know a certain thing, we could put it in the book too, fill up the content. But it was definitely like, okay, imposter syndrome, put it aside. Like, we're going to provide a valuable tool, because it was like, hey, should we're kind of new at this, who are we to have like a book about it? But we really worked hard at it, and it's every time I go to a conference, someone comes up to me and it's like, oh, thank you for writing that. I learned so much. So it was really cool, and it helped us raise our game too, because just putting it all on paper, and if we weren't doing it as well as we should, then we improve that. So it was as much of an exercise for us as for putting it out there. But it's a long process. It was a lot of work.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Well, thank you, because I appreciate it greatly.
Likewise. So as far as the asset management thing goes, like, I know you hosted summits before, you had a podcast, wrote a book now. Like, what's next? Like, what are you doing in the future? Anything else? Like any kind of conferences or anything?
Yeah, I just spoke at a family office conference last week. I've got a few other conferences, I guess 3 or 4 every year at least in person, and then a bunch more online. Nothing else set, I don't think. Maybe IMN. I think I'm going to be talking at potentially in Denver. They've got a new one launching. But, just constantly learning too, how can we improve on our end? And we were looking at, when we were evaluating our property management company with my asset manager, okay, well, here are some of their weak spots. How can we cover that gap so we're getting a lot, more out of them, because they're not going to hit the mark on every single thing. So here are some of these weaknesses. How can we improve what we do to cover that gap? We're always learning new things, getting ideas from people like you from all over for us to implement things that we didn't even think of, or that we need to be paying more attention to as well. So part of it is having that open mindset, that growth mindset, that we're constantly going to improve. Kaizen is one of our values, company core values.
Oh, cool.
And if we can't figure it out, we're going to reach out to someone else too, that maybe has hit a problem that we haven't hit, and we don't necessarily know how to figure it out. Because that's what's great about this industry. You can always reach out to someone else that may have gone through that, or at least know someone that you can reach out to. And typically they're willing to help.
No, they are. And that's the best part. It's like, because a lot of us in this industry too, like actually like to solve problems, oddly enough. And so it's like, oh, look at somebody else has a problem that I can help solve. Like, I don't know if they are actually thinking about it, but I've thought about it that way before. I'm like, yes, please. So I totally understand that.
Absolutely. So is there going to be, I know you talk about like always learning how to improve processes and asset management, things like that. You think there'll be a second edition of the book?
Potentially. Yeah, we've thought about that. I just haven't had brought up the enough energy and whatnot to do it. But yeah, we maybe in a year or two that might put something together and put it out there. But yeah, I love educating others on asset management. It really is a huge differentiator, and trying to make sure we have enough good new content too for people.
Totally agree.
I agree too.
Cool.
Thank you.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, Gary. I can't believe the time is flowing so fast already. I would love to chat with you for the next couple hours. Our listeners would not enjoy that. But anyways, that being said, we are moving to our Adventurous Four. These are 4 exploratory questions we ask all of our guests. So if you're ready, Gary, we will begin the questioning.
Hit me.
All right.
Cool.
So first question we have for you is, where is one place you wish to travel to and why?
New Zealand is on my bucket list. And so we're hoping maybe December break that we go, between the hiking, just the beautiful scenery. So we've got it planned out. So we're hoping maybe December.
I like
Love
it.
it.
I do.
Love it.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what is one thing on your bucket list and how are you leveraging real estate investing to achieve it besides New Zealand?
Part of it is that financial freedom, the ability to pay for it, to take the time off to do it. We just did a family trip to Spain and Portugal over this past December break. And, if I didn't have such a great year last year, I couldn't, afford to do that. So it's definitely helped me have the lifestyle that I want to have.
Totally agree.
Yeah, us too. Thank you.
Yeah, same. So the third question we have for you is, what is one piece of advice for someone who wants to start passively investing in real estate?
Yeah, like I said, really get to know your sponsor, talk to other people that they've invested with, and figure out their communication style. And you could kind of figure it out yourself. Do they get back to you right away? Do they answer all your questions? Stuff like that will really help. And maybe ask for a newsletter that they provide for one of their their properties, so you can see, are they comparing actual to budget, and it never goes perfectly, and that's fine, but a lot of people kind of change their numbers on a consistent basis, and you would just want to see that consistency. And if something is wrong, then communicate how you're fixing it, because no one expects perfection. Nothing in life is perfect. So just explain how you're fixing it, how you're, what's plan B. And then if that's not working, what's plan C, and keep solving problems, like Susie said.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it is. Thanks for that. And then our fourth and final question is, if you had unlimited resources available to you, how would you leave an impact?
Well, so I worked with at-risk youth previously, and I just spoke at for a youth leadership group a couple of weeks ago. I talked about entrepreneurship. So definitely would, unlimited resources. That's not, let's do it now. And I could keep contributing. I don't need to wait for this magical number. So giving back is very important. I feel I've been very, blessed. So there's no time like the present, and the more I do, the more I can spend more time and money doing that. So there's not a magical number that I'm trying to reach for them to start doing it.
Yeah.
No, thank you. That was a great answer.
Love
I
that.
do appreciate that.
For sure. Well, Gary, it's been an absolute pleasure. Before we end the show, would you mind sharing with our adventurous family how they can get in contact with you or learn more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. Go to breakofdaycapital.com. We have an investor guide to really get to know your sponsor. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Connect with me. Happy to talk real estate.
Perfect. And I'll make sure those are all in the show notes so that you can find them easily. And please, please, please do reach out to Gary, or read his content, listen to his podcast. You will learn so much. You just will. I wish I could go on and on and on. So many words. So thank you. I appreciate you being here with us. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me. I love you. You're my peeps. I love your enthusiasm for asset management. We need to build our tribe.
I love
Totally.
it. Let's do it.
We really do.
I love it. I feel like an asset management mastermind coming on here. 3 people.
Right.
Awesome. Thanks again, Gary. It's been an absolute pleasure. So until next time, explore more, adventure awaits.